This England 11 beats Switzerland 100% guaranteed. We're going to run through the big changes needed by Gareth Southgate against the Swiss, who have been absolutely fantastic in this tournament. If Granit Xhaka gets on the ball against England, we are in a world of pain. But Gareth Southgate has to change things. Slovakia was about an inch away from being one of the worst disasters in the history of national football in this country. It was Iceland 2.0. And here are the big changes that I would make. It's also reflective of what I think could actually happen, because sometimes we make changes in these videos and we know that Gareth Southgate is never going to be ambitious enough to play Ivan Toney from the start of the game, as an example. This video is very generously brought to you by Champions Choice. Such a fun game. I've been using it throughout the Euros. A little bit more on them later in the video. Right, from the outset, I think it's very simple what I believe Gareth Southgate should do. An overview would be, we need 5 at the back. This mitigates the fact that Mark Gahey's on a yellow card and obviously can't play in this game, and the fact that Konsa has barely played. Joe Gomez has not been trusted. We've got a lack of potentially Luke Shaw as well. So that kind of 4 at the back becomes even weaker without Mark Gahey. He's been our player of the tournament by a country mile, and the one decision that Gareth Southgate's got spot on in terms of his inclusion, but not only inclusion in the squad, but starting over Lewis Dunk, starting over Konsa, and even Joe Gomez have all had a lot more tournament experience than him, or at least England experience. The back 5 also navigates the fact that Kyle Walker had a really, really poor game. It might have been the worst performance from Kyle Walker I've seen as a City fan since he joined the club, because his first season at City he was unplayable. So he's been at a very, very high level for a long time. It begs the question, are you allowed to have an off day as Kyle Walker? Yes. The defensive frailty of allowing the Slovakian attack to be onside was very, very concerning, deeply concerning, because of how bad it was. Sometimes you can have deflected efforts. Look at Vertonghen against France, for example. Sometimes accidents happen as defenders. It's hard sometimes against some of these incredible forwards in the modern game. This is Slovakia, and Kyle Walker looks very limited. But there's a real debate that if you play a back 4 and you replace Kyle Walker for Trent, not only does that massively reduce your kind of the belief from Kyle Walker in you as a manager if you're Gareth Southgate, because Kyle Walker is one of the leaders of that side. I think swapping him now after playing him every single minute of the tournament so far essentially would be suicide in terms of managerial acumen, in my opinion. And obviously you can sit there and debate, well, it's just the right swap, and I think you would be right. But a back 5 allows you to keep Kyle Walker's pace on the break from Switzerland. Look at someone like Embolo up front. I mean, they got the pace and the power up front. It's unbelievable, Switzerland, really. Kyle Walker mitigates that, a lot of that, and he can do very, very well if England are chasing players back towards our own goal. Slovakia are so deep that Kyle Walker looked poor on the ball. This is where you get better on the ball if you bring in Trent. Trent's not a midfielder. I debate Trent's ability as a right back and a 4 in this England side, which is so devoid of confidence. So a back 5 allows you to have Trent in right wing back. He can bomb on. He can tuck into midfield. He can do whatever he wants because he's got 3 centre-backs behind him. One is Kyle Walker and John Stones, who had a fantastic 2018 World Cup playing the same role, one of the best defences in the tournament. Then you get Konsa in, who's been in one of the best defences in the Premier League for Aston Villa. If Joe Gomez had played more minutes, and I would have liked Joe Gomez, but he's not played and Konsa's been trusted ahead of him, that makes a lot of sense for me. And then you can get Luke Shaw involved. He's less isolated as a fullback in a back 4 because of the injury and stuff like that. He can be a bit more free. Obviously still hard working, but playing as a left back in a 4 versus a 5 is completely different. And he can just focus on bombing forward. He doesn't have to get up and down the pitch in the same way, in my opinion. And you've got Konsa in behind, and you've got Stones in behind, and Kyle Walker if you're a little bit rusty. If Shaw isn't fit, obviously it's a big if, then you can play either Joe Gomez as a left wing back. I know it's a bit crazy, but he can tuck in as a centre back as well. But why not play Bukayo Saka left wing back? It's a little bit more adventurous than just saying play as a left back. He's come out, I think, very unfairly and said that he doesn't want to play left back. It's not good for the side. I think player power of that regard is ridiculous, in my opinion, especially if your England manager asks you to play left back, you should be playing there. He had 5 minutes against Slovakia. Then weirdly, Eze kind of got demoted to left back. Very strange situation. It suggests a lack of managerial power coming top down from Gareth Southgate. But in my formation, I would command and have the presence to give this guy a big telling to say you're a fantastic left wing back. You can get on the overlap. Defensively, you don't have to work as hard because you've got 3 centre-backs behind you. or at least 3 defenders. You can whip it around the corner for Harry Kane. Harry Kane loved the likes of Ashley Young, Kyle Walker, and different players like that bombing on when he was in a 5 in the World Cup in 2018. Saka can whip it around. He can be a left wing back, but really, if all the side moves across when he's got the ball, he becomes that left winger, and it kind of solves so many problems. I don't think it's too pie in the sky either. I think it's an easier sell for Gareth Southgate to play a 5 against Switzerland and play Saka as a left wing back. The back 5 gets Gareth Southgate back to the meat and potatoes of who he is as a manager and what got him so successful. What's given him 8 years as a manager? What's given him 8 years as England manager, the highest role in this country, is the tournament where it started for him in Russia, 2018. He played a back 5 based on defensive security, based on the brilliance of Maguire, Stones, Pickford, Kyle Walker, Ashley Young at the time. Why not mimic that? Why not go back to square one? Why not go, life can be a series of patterns, and why not just go back to the original pattern that you started with this England side? Champions Choice are very generously backing the channel throughout the Euros. Champions Choice is a free-to-play game with up to £1,000 readily available throughout the Euros, and the games are going to continue as the domestic season kicks into gear. Champions Choice is a very, very fun app where the fun doesn't really stop because you have to keep selecting your sides of who you think is going to win. It's been very, very fun for me throughout the Euros, and especially when the Premier League starts up. You can't just back Man City as I would, or Liverpool, Man United. You have to choose winners throughout various match rounds, and it's an unbelievably fun game. You can play in private games and public games too, and it's free to play all from the very start with some huge cash prizes up for grabs. They've been very generously supporting the channel throughout the Euros, so make sure you check it out. The link is in the description down below. Download the app, download Champions Choice, and have a blast playing their game. Right, the midfield picks itself. I think back 5s and 3s are such a fantastic idea in international football, particularly when your manager is clueless. Declan Rice in midfield. He gets protected behind him. He's allowed to bomb on now a little bit more, be a little bit more adventurous on the ball. Because he's got options behind him, that also means that someone like Kobbie Mainoo, who plays alongside him, means that with this midfield that England have got so much energy. The midfield that we had when we played a 5 and we were 1-0 up against Croatia, we were holding on to the lead, desperate to get to the World Cup final for the first time since 1966. We got overrun in midfield. Everyone knows the narrative. Modric was getting on the ball. Rebic was getting on the ball. Fantastic players. Kobbie Mainoo is that answer now. Kobbie Mainoo can go into that midfield. Again, look behind him and see there's 3 fantastic defenders, all with pace. Trent to the right of me is great on the ball. He'll be, Kobbie Mainoo at points against Slovakia was driving the England midfield on by himself. And every time England fans were looking at it, we're probably worried that if he lost the ball, there'd be so much space in behind England. With a back 5, you get that opportunity to have a bit more protection behind you. Having Trent to the right of you for Kobbie Mainoo is like dreamland. Kyle Walker was so poor on the ball, and Kobbie Mainoo must have been pulling his hair out playing alongside him in terms of being a midfielder, wanting the ball, having good quality possession in there. It's hard when you've got Trent, when you've got Kyle Walker firing things into you. Trent has got that easier touch, a little bit easier on the eye. The aesthetic would be far better to watch as well. So Kobbie Mainoo, Declan Rice, and because you've got all this protection, 2 defensive midfielders essentially in front of a back 5 with wingers that bomb forward, push Switzerland back, and can almost be counter-attacking to Switzerland. You can have 3 floaters. Harry Kane can have a lot of assistance. You can either put Phil Foden in there. You can either have Jude Bellingham alongside, and they can have completely free roles, a bit like Jesse Lingard and Dele Alli did, alongside Harry Kane. A bit like how Raheem Sterling had that free role alongside him and gave so much energy, so much mobility. For me, I think Phil Foden, if this formation ever happened, then I think Phil Foden would be a great option still, because he's not now a left winger and we can give him a go. I think he works hard for the side. I think he's got a point to prove. And look at Jude Bellingham's goal. He had that bicycle kick out of nowhere. Phil Foden is still going to get that moment. I believe it in my bones. And I think he's still being trusted by Southgate. But this formation alludes to the idea you could get Cole Palmer in there, you could get Ivan Toney in there, drop Jude Bellingham back a little bit and play kind of 3 midfielders, 2 up front, We've seen that obviously with 3-5-2s before. You can have Ivan Toney in the final 20 minutes with Harry Kane, and you can have that kind of link-up play, which would be scary exciting for many England fans. So I think Gareth Southgate has to revisit the idea of going back to a back five. He has to revisit the idea of this England side are not able to control a game. This England side are dogged, resilient, far beyond what he's able to express as a manager to them in the changing room. So why not just sit there and say, hold my hands up. I'm limited in so many regards as England manager. I'll let you guys do your work, but all I'm going to do is put an extra fullback in there. We've got many right backs that are fantastic. Why not utilize two of them as opposed to one of them at a time, and especially one of them in their wrong position? Get Trent Bommel on right wing back. Get Luke Shaw. Get Saka left wing back as well. That can limit the fact that he's had a really poor tournament as a right winger, Bukayo Saka, in my opinion. Kobbie Mainoo is protected. Declan Rice is protected. They can express themselves with three world-class players all kind of having this insurance policy behind them. It means a little bit less control because obviously if Switzerland pack the midfield, you can boss a back five quite easily because there's an extra man missing in midfield. But if it works, it's delicious, it's outrageous, and England could kind of kick on this tournament. Look how France bullied Belgium at points and kind of nick this disgusting winner. England have to be the shithouse of the tournament to win this tournament, in my opinion. A back five screams, sweating it with your mates on FIFA 12 with Emenike up front. That's what I want, lads. That's what I'm praying for. Let me know what you think of the England formation that I've created. I think it'd be very interesting for Gareth Southgate. I hope he's watching his hotel room. And yeah, hopefully we beat the Swiss. I'm going to do a full preview on the channel later on in the week. I'll see you very, very soon.